order, the chair recognizes himself for 5 minutes for an opening statement. Today's hearing will examine ways to maintain American leadership in biomedical innovation. This hearing is a great opportunity to learn more about what is working, where improvements can be made, and how Congress can ensure FDA continues to serve patients well, promote innovation, and maintain our nation's leadership in biomedicine. The United States has always been the global leader in biopharmaceutical research and development, and it's important that we remain leaders in this space. However, other countries are catching up to the United States. It is important for Congress to re-examine our current landscape to ensure we are staying up to date with the latest biopharmaceutical advancements and examine what role Congress could play in making these processes more efficient. This administration has proposed efforts to do so, such as the recent launch of FDA's Operation Trailblazer, announced you rehearse this stuff, you still get it wrong. Trailblazer, announced in June. This is an HHS-wide effort that comes in response to the growing competitiveness of the global pharmaceutical landscape, which promotes cross-agency collaboration in support of research from the earliest stages of innovation. Operation Trailblazer provides a set of initiatives and reforms to modernize and accelerate medical product development, aiming to remove the unnecessary hurdles and ambiguity that sometimes hinders patient access to innovative treatments, streamlining clinical trial requirements, encouraging use of modern trial designs and real-world evidence where appropriate, and reducing administrative burden can shorten development timelines and lower costs without compromising science or safety. These improvements have the potential to bring new treatments to patients faster, increase participation in clinical research, and make the United States even more attractive for investment in medical breakthroughs. It is important that we begin to have these conversations as this subcommittee looks ahead to FDA's user fee reauthorizations next year, especially as initiatives like Operation Trailblazer demonstrate that an approach to maintaining America's competitive edge involving improving the efficiency and efficacy of drug development. For more than 3 decades, user fee programs have helped provide FDA with the resources to review innovative drugs and medical devices while maintaining the agency's rigorous standards for safety and effectiveness. Rather than relying solely on taxpayer dollars, user fees are paid by manufacturers that submit products for review, helping ensure the FDA has the scientific expertise and capacities necessary to keep pace with the rapidly advancing medical innovations. Ultimately, user fees serve to improve health outcomes for patients. Every day that a safe and effective therapy reaches the market is another day that patients living with cancer, rare diseases, or other serious conditions may have access to life-changing or even life-saving treatments. The predictability and performance goals established through the user fee agreements have helped reduce review times, improve communication between FDA and product developers, and provide greater standardization through the review process. However, there is still more work that can be done, and reauthorization is not limited to just extending the status quo. Reauthorization gives Congress the opportunity to explore and write legislation so we can continue to work to streamline regulatory processes, reduce unnecessary administrative burdens, strengthen communication with product developers, and ensure the agency has the tools it needs to make the best possible use of its resources. We can also continue to look for opportunities to modernize clinical trial networks, embedding them in routine care and expanding access to innovative treatments in rural areas. Maintaining America's position as the global leader in biomedical innovation requires a regulatory system that is both thorough and efficient. I am eager to look for ways that we can help ensure FDA can review drugs in a timely and predictable manner, not only to expand patient access to innovative treatments, but to also encourage companies to invest, develop, and manufacture domestically. Thank the witnesses for being here this morning, and I look forward to the discussion. I now recognize the subcommittee ranking member, DeGette, for her 5 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I am really excited about this hearing today because I've really worked a lot on biomedical research issues over my career, and I have to tell you, I think that I've never seen a more precarious time for the U.S. leadership around the world in biomedical research. The FDA plays a critical role in regulating clinical trials, centering on the safety of trial participants and making sure that trials are asking the right questions. Over the past year and a half, FDA staff has been decimated. Political appointees have been making decisions that should be left to scientists, and industry and researchers have been left in the dark about what current agency policy actually is. The disastrous reign of Elon Musk and Doge last year resulted in 3,500 jobs being eliminated at the FDA, willy-nilly, without respect to what they were,
We need to defund
the most
the
of any
FDA, in my
HHS
opinion.
agency. Low morale was pervasive at the agency, and it showed. FDA shed senior leaders and rank-and-file scientists alike, even the ones who weren't just summarily dismissed. Under Commissioner McCary, an agency famously insulated from political pressures became instead captured by them. He started the Commissioner's National Priority Voucher Program, which provided incentives to companies with no predefined criteria, simply rewarding general alignment with administration policies. Without set public criteria, companies don't know what to focus on for the program, and the public doesn't know what, legitimate or not, is being rewarded. In another example, bowing to Secretary Kennedy's anti-vaccine nonsense, FDA Commissioner McCary refused to even review an mRNA-based flu vaccine before being forced to change course by public outcry. And who can forget FDA's initiation of a label change for Tylenol, indicating a lack of safety for use in pregnancy, contrary to established scientific evidence and against the advice of medical organizations, simply because Secretary Kennedy wanted something to blame for increased documented rates of ADHD and autism. All of these decisions placed ideology above science. FDA's inability and shoot-from-the-hip approach to policy also impacted industry. Commissioner McCary and FDA leadership made major policy announcements through journal articles, press releases, and even podcasts, circumventing FDA.
This lady is really pissing me off because we've listened to quite a few hearings over the last 2 months from the Senate, from Congress, that have brought in experts that are basically saying the exact opposite of what she's saying. And if you listen to some of the things that Senator Johnson has uncovered in the last few years over mRNA vaccines, you will see how much evidence there is that shows how damaging those vaccines can actually be. I just think that the FDA are just shills for Big Pharma at this point. And we already know that 70% of the FDA's funding comes from Big Pharma. No, I'm sorry. A total of 53% of the FDA's funding comes from Big Pharma. But when it comes to the review process, 70% of those funds come from Big Pharma to the FDA. So there's really a conflict of interest in what she's saying. And it really upsets me because the FDA is not protecting our citizens. They're just pretending. And they get so passionate about it, and they just think that they're so much better than everyone. And they get on their high horses and talk about science and how Trump and Elon Musk and Kennedy, they're so bad. And, you know, they don't know anything. They're just making this stuff up when there's so much evidence to back what they're saying. And there's so much evidence that the FDA is so wrong about so many things. How many things have they approved in the last few decades that we find out have caused horrific side effects for our citizens? And the answer to everything is just give them more money. And anybody that's trying to take back that money, say, hey, you know, you're doing really cruel, nefarious things, then they become demonized. And I'm really kind of sick of it.
Policy-making processes and making it so researchers did not know what the official policy was. FDA would even contradict its own past guidance, as in the case of experimental gene therapy for Huntington's disease. FDA reversed direction, demanding a new trial for the product, even though advocates and scientists believe the new trial to be unethical. Luckily, with the evidence that Macari is gone, things do seem to be slowly improving, and this is what I'm hearing from the community. The agency is now in the process of hiring thousands of staff to fill critical gaps, though it's hindered by the reputational damage to the agency from Macari and Doge. There are responsible leaders atop the critical centers at FDA, and Acting Commissioner Kyle Diamantis has shown every indication that he will empower career experts to do their jobs and protect American patients and get good products to market. In February, I sent a letter to FDA regarding the agency's failure to follow its own good guidance practices, announcing policy through journal articles, et cetera, which is expressly prohibited in regulation. Last week, the agency finally responded, indicating the announcements we asked about were not in fact guidance and did not communicate FDA policy on these issues. I'd like to enter both my letter and the agency's response in the record. I'd like to ask unanimous consent, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection, so ordered.
I hope this is a turning point, back to transparency, to consistency, and to a focus on good science. This is particularly important for developers trying to get promising medicines into the clinic. And it's also important to our reputation in the world, so we can get clinical trials back into the U.S.
Why do we even need the FDA? We know that Big Pharma is funding them. Why can't Big Pharma have their own trials, and then they can put all the evidence out, and the American people can decide whether they want to try that product or not? Why does the FDA need to be involved whatsoever? Like I said, they get so much stuff wrong. I don't even understand the purpose of them at this point. And what's been really bugging me over the last few weeks is we streamed a hearing from the Senate, and the title is Poisoned Pills. And it was about how any generic medication that is made offshore, like in China and in India, when it comes here onshore, the FDA does not require any testing whatsoever once it comes to our shores. So we actually have no idea what's in those pills that we're giving to really anybody, our youth, children, infants, our seniors. We have no idea what's in those pills. But yet the FDA has these initiatives where they're going after American manufacturers that are manufacturing supplements and herbs and things that aren't FDA regulated. They don't need to be FDA regulated, but the FDA tries to shut them down. And that just seems really fishy to me. Do they really care about the American people's health, or are they mostly funded by Big Pharma? And if there's an herbal or something that can't be regulated by Big Pharma that actually works and people are taking, they just want to shut that down and protect Big Pharma. I don't know if that's true or not, but it just seems like that's what they're doing.
And stop this brain drain that we've seen going overseas. Innovative researchers will need to trust the FDA to treat their applications fairly and without political favor or disfavor. As science, as our capabilities evolve, so must our regulators. And so, needless to say, Mr. Chairman, I'm looking forward to hearing more from the witnesses on just how we can work with the agency to strengthen it so that we can get cures to patients quickly and safely as possible and maintain our leadership in biotechnology and medicine as we go through the 21st century. And I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Now recognize the chairman of the full committee, Chairman Guthrie, for 5 minutes for his opening statement.
Good morning, and thank you, Chairman Griffith, for holding this hearing on this important topic, and the Ranking Member DeGette, thank you for doing this. Additionally, thank you to all of our witnesses for being here. We appreciate your expertise as we examine how Congress and the FDA can strengthen Americans' leadership in biomedical innovation by supporting early-stage drug development, clinical research, and domestic manufacturing. For decades, the United States has set the global standard, a gold standard for developing safe and effective medical products. which benefit patients around the world, with Americans who gain earlier access to groundbreaking therapies. This is possible because innovators have chosen to develop them here first, but our leadership cannot be taken for granted. Other countries, particularly China, are making significant investments to attract biotechnology companies, their clinical trials, and domestic manufacturing. Our ability to develop and manufacture life-saving medicines, vaccines, and other medical products here in the U.S. depends on a strong domestic biotechnology sector and a regulatory environment that supports innovation while preserving FDA standards for safety and effectiveness. Bringing new therapies to patients requires clinical trials that are efficient and modern, leveraging new digital technologies and novel evidence supported by sound science. This committee has a strong record of advancing those goals. Through the FDA user fee authorization, this committee has worked in a bipartisan way to modernize FDA's authorities, improve regulatory predictability, and help Americans access new cures without compromising FDA's gold standard of review. Today's hearing is an opportunity to continue that work, learning from our witnesses where barriers to innovation remain, how FDA can further improve the efficiency and predictability of early-stage drug development, and what legislative changes Congress should consider as we prepare for the next FDA user fee reauthorization cycle. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate our witnesses for being here, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Now recognize the ranking member of the full committee, Representative Pallone, for his 5 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman Griffith. I'm pleased that we're here to talk about advancing the U.S.'s role in drug development, particularly at a time when that role is threatened by the actions of the Trump administration. For a long time, the U.S. has been the world leader in drug development, but this did not just happen. It was thanks to the...
Let's just forget that people have died from the COVID vaccine. We're just going to pretend that that didn't happen. That's just a conspiracy theory.
Cooperation between our public health agencies, namely the Food and Drug Administration and the National Institutes of Health, and industry partners to ensure that our gold standard research and regulatory review process is appropriately tailored to bring safe and effective products to Americans. Other countries have looked to our public health agencies as the gold standard leaders in research, therapeutic innovation and development, and regulatory oversight of medical product assessment. In order to remain that global leader, we need to preserve the strength of our public health infrastructure and investment in research.
If the FDA is so great, then how come so many countries all over the globe won't import our foods? Our FDA allows all this chemical and gross dyes and stuff in our foods, and literally other countries won't touch our food. We have people from all over the world here in the U.S. right now for the World Cup. And some countries have shipped in their own food because they don't want to eat American food because it's so gross and processed and full of cancer-causing chemicals. But our FDA is so great, guys. It's so great. They're just the leaders. They're just global leaders, right?
Research. However, we've heard many experts sound the alarm that the United States is at risk of losing its competitive edge in research and development to other countries, especially China. Unfortunately, actions we have seen from the Trump administration will only fuel the fire in allowing other countries to overtake our position, threatening the advancement of life-saving cures. The Trump administration has slashed billions of dollars in critical research funding. This funding was already congressionally approved, but Trump wasted no time in abruptly and arbitrarily cutting the funding from research institutions and dismantling federal scientific agencies. Experts warn that these funding cuts destabilize the scientific research that is the foundation of drug discovery. In many instances, these funds were slated to go towards scientific research that would develop basic research that complements industry's applied research for drugs that they submit to FDA for approval. Without this initial public investment into NIH, the pipeline of drugs will slow. In fact, the Congressional Budget Office estimated that a 10% cut to NIH's budget would result in 20 fewer life-saving drugs approved over 10 years. But the administration's threats to advancing drug development do not end there. Early last year, the Elon Musk-led DOGE indiscriminately and illegally cut thousands of federal employees from our public health institutions. It's still unclear which positions or programs were cut in the mass layoffs, and I've asked FDA specifically for this information for over a year and still have not received satisfactory responses. Just yesterday, I asked the Government Accountability Office whether FDA has violated the law in spending user fee dollars on unauthorized expenditures. And as we approach the user fee reauthorizations next year, I expect answers to those questions. Beyond these terminations, the administration has created upheaval at the FDA. Despite attempts to rehire staff, reports have shown that the FDA applicant pools are not as robust as they used to be. This is concerning given reports of brain drain with leading scientists leaving the United States to work for competing countries. So I'm glad we're having this hearing today, but we cannot have a productive conversation about how best to move forward without honestly evaluating the real harm that the Trump administration has done. Administration's actions threaten availability of new cures for American patients. And I look forward to hearing from our witnesses about what else is needed to address this critical problem as we begin the process of reauthorizing user fees. So thank you, Chairman Griffin, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. We now conclude with member opening statements. The chair would like to remind members that pursuant to committee rules, all members' opening statements will be made a part of the record. We want to thank our witnesses for taking their time to testify before the subcommittee today. Although it is not the practice of this subcommittee to swear in witnesses, I would remind our witnesses that knowingly and willfully making materially false statements to the legislative branch is against the law under Title 18, Section 1001 of the United States Code. You will have the opportunity to give an opening statement followed by questions from members. And our witnesses today are Dr. Cynthia Verst, who is the President of Design and Delivery Innovation, R&D Solutions at IQVIA, Ms. Susan Winkler, who is the Executive Officer of the Reagan-Udall Foundation for the FDA. And I will now yield to my friend and colleague, Ms. DeGette of Colorado, to introduce our next witness.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm so happy to introduce my friend, Dr. Aaron Kowalski, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Breakthrough T1D, which is the leading global organization driving research, advocacy, and cures for type 1 diabetes. Many people on this committee know my daughter, Francesca, who was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes very early in my congressional career. And also, Dr. Kowalski and his brother both have it. Frankly, when they were all diagnosed, everybody was saying there's a cure around the corner, no problem, and all these years have gone by. But all of us have shared a lifetime commitment to advancing treatments, therapies, and ultimately cures. And it has been extraordinary to see what has transpired. And this is why I'm so happy Dr. Kowalski's here, and it'll blow your mind when he talks to you about some of this research, but also the others here today, what's happening in biomedical research in this country. And I know that under his leadership, Breakthrough T1D continues to bring researchers, industry regulators, and advocates together. And I just want to say, while I have the floor, thank you to Dr. Kowalski, but thank you to all of our witnesses here today and everybody in the room. We are on the cusp of exciting discoveries, and this committee needs to partner with all of you in how we do it. Okay.
And I appreciate it, and I'd also appreciate all the witnesses being here today. The next witness to be introduced is Dr. Thomas Wang. Did I get it right? All right, he says I got it right. And is an assistant professor of medicine at Brigham and Women's Hospital and Harvard Medical School. And last but not least, Dr. Thomas Boyke is the Bloomberg Chair in Global Health, Senior Fellow for International Economics, Law, and Development, and Director of the Global Health Program Council on Foreign Relations. Per committee custom, each witness will have the opportunity for a 5-minute opening statement, followed by a round of questions from members. The light on the timer in front of you will turn from green to yellow when you have 1 minute left. It is now my honor and privilege to recognize our first witness, Dr. Cynthia Verst, for her 5-minute opening statement.
Chairman Griffith, Ranking Member DeGette, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for the invitation to present to you today. I'm Dr. Cindy Verst, President of R&D Design and Delivery Innovation for IQVIA, a leading clinical research, service, and commercial insight provider to the life science industry. Our 90,000 employees work every day to serve over 1,000 biopharmaceutical sponsors from large to small, bringing medicines to patients faster. We connect globally with thousands of investigators to engage patients and deliver high-quality clinical data to global regulators. IQVIA's vantage point today on the U.S. competitiveness is both practical, pragmatic, and data-driven. We help sponsors design and execute global clinical trials, and we see in real time why companies choose one country over another for their trials. So I'd like to share a few insights and data points and recommendations. Firstly, the United States remains the most sought-after market for new medicines and thus a critical destination for clinical